Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I am Amy, along here with my sister Molly. We help high-achieving women increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. We are neighbors, sisters, and business partners. We have built 8-figure businesses together, traveled the world together, raised our children together, mentored thousands of men and women together, and it's all because we have a penthouse mindset. We aim for the top, and we show others how to empower themselves to peel back the layers and truly step into their greatness and calling. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. My name is Amy Mosser, along with my sister Molly Kroeker, who's going to get our camera because we have to remember to take a picture. We are so excited to have Carrie Wales here. Oh my goodness gracious. This woman has literally saved Molly and I's lives. I mean, she has transformed our lives. And you all know that we have just like the mindset of, I don't even know what we have. That is one of our biggest strengths is our mindset and how we can have mastered it. And that's why we love sharing all of this with you. But we are getting into the physical side of this. And Carrie is like, oh my gosh, I just can't wait to have you hear her. And of course, Meet Me in the Penthouse. We help high achieving women not only increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. And so that is why we know that you will love hearing Carrie, because the impact that she is creating in our little town in Nebraska, I mean, 350,000, but the impact she is creating is incredible. So I'm going to let Molly take it away. Molly's the one that sort of found her first because I was a little under the radar on what I was doing.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce you to Carrie because, yeah, if you can have all the mindset, but if you don't have the physical part, right? The 3D part, so spiritual, emotional, physical. And I feel like I had the other two under wraps. And then we always talk about 40. Your imagination is truly the best place to live. But Carrie is the one who has helped us physically feel well. I always say nobody probably ever walks into your office, Carrie, and says, do you have anything that's going to make me look worse or feel worse? Because we would be in trouble. So exactly. So Carrie, I found because I was just curious if I was through menopause. I'm somebody that a lot of you know I run, I've done Ironman, but there was a period of time when I did not have a cycle for 13 years. It was lovely and not with birth control, not with anything. And not because I was super low body fat. I mean, maybe lower, but not like we're not talking 3%. I mean, it was a normal range, truly. Even my OBGYN said that. But I mean, I was like, well, I'm kind of irregular and all these things. I had maybe, 4 hot flashes in my entire life. And so I thought, oh, let's just see if I'm through menopause. And then Carrie's like, you're already through it. So that's what led me to Carrie. And she truly has changed my life hormonally. So Carrie, take it away. Let us know. First of all, you're a nurse practitioner.
I'm a nurse.
But you didn't start there. I mean,
Right. Mm-hmm.
tell
Yeah.
us where you started and what led you down this path.
Yeah. First off, thank you so much for having me today. You both are both, I would say, tenacious, beautiful, driven, and striving women that are beautiful both inside and out. And thank you for letting me be a partner in your healthcare. And yes, I'm a nurse practitioner, and I started out as a nurse or registered nurse, and I worked as a nurse in pediatric environment for 18 years and went back to school to get my master's degree, and I decided to do family practice because I was like, I'll be, I can learn a little bit more and do a little bit more things, and never thought I was going to be in wellness care. But that's always been my thing, because I want to keep people well. Preventative care, nurse practitioners come from that holistic standpoint. You just talk about the 3D aspect of health and wellness and overall just feeling at your best. And I'm like, well, how can I make people be well and not get sick? Well, let's do that. And so, yep, it's have my master's degree, and then I also have my board certification in primary care, and I am a nurse practitioner. So it's kind of fun. So we can do fun things, but we can also, I can chat with you and enjoy time, and hopefully it doesn't feel stuffy or boring. And my big thing is individualized care. So everybody's different. Everybody's got different goals, wants, needs, and how can I help you feel your best as you go through stages? And we don't talk about that our stages start to decline in our early 40s of our hormones, and hormones waning are actually trying to age you a little bit, So perimenopause can start, it can be 7 to even 14 years for some people. You get through menopause, and that's technically one period, that no period for 1 year. Yours was not necessarily. Yours body was just kind of whatever.
Yeah. Mine was like, I can't figure you out.
Yes. And we had to do testing to get there. But also you're like, well, why am I not maintaining muscle mass? Why might my blood sugars be rising? Like things like that we have to address in a hormonal aspect. Are my vitamin levels okay? And, vitamin D is a hormone. We have to talk about that, and so things that we can do is just checking those wellness panels, and I can answer questions in those, potentially in those aspects, which is really fun because it also is empowering to the patient, because you might not have realized I've been running, I've been eating my best. I've been working out and everything's the same as what I've done. I've been as healthy as possible. Well, how can I help you be even healthier or help your body work better, like it used to?
Right. I love that you were peds and you're like, okay, how can I help you live your best life? Truly, were you with like babies and like little, okay, like
NICU all the way till, and then, even past age 18, it just kind of would be dependent if patients have congenital disorders. Like sometimes we still take care of that. But, hey, I used to be a traveling nurse, so I just go show up and work for people all the time. So I'm like, whatever.
I mean, huge change, like the beginning of life to more like, okay, this is where you're declining and this is where I'm headed. So what got you interested in going back? Obviously you got your NP, that's, but then hormones, like how did you land there? Right away in family practice, or were you just?
Well, I realized in my training how much we got of training of any menopause. It was like none of that. And I'm like, I've always
5 hours.
Children, it's like, well, women's wellness, so that's kind of my avocation. Like, and we just don't talk about how women are and feel and going through even stages of having a child or childbirth and after that. And when I was in my training and my residency, and so I had as I was going through my women's health advocacy, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like hormones, like every problem that any woman's coming in with is having potentially a hormonal problem. And I'm like, this could be really interesting to just really focus on why things change after age 35 and beyond. And nobody is discussing what, like, here, let me give you, oh, you know what, you might be crazy. Let me give you an SSRI. Or, you're having hot flashes. That's normal right now. That's not. I wasn't going to take that. I'm like, I don't want to tell my patients. Why would I tell my patients that or prescribe them a medication they not need or change their brain function, to not experience something, and we all need to experience our changes, but we can also age gracefully and feel good. And I wasn't going to take that. I'm like, I
love that.
Do that.
10 years ago that even like, I feel like that all this knowledge about hormones, I mean, honestly, is it newer? I mean, I know we're in Nebraska, but I feel like in the last 5 years, it's really gotten like a lot.
I think because people are talking about it, it wasn't talked about. It wasn't taboo. My mom didn't talk about it. This is just what happens at this time in life. It's just the way it is. It's not the way it is. Like usually, and we have to be really careful. Some of these signs, like especially severe hot flashes, might put a woman at higher risk for things like type 2 diabetes. Like we have to, there's correlations there. We need to watch hypertension. We need to watch, there's rapid weight gain that could be a problem. Just think of the emotional distress you're going through. Oh, I've done everything the same I've always done. Why am I different now? And so emotional feelings that may not need some type of medication, but maybe like functioning of like balancing hormones, and we also, I think it's really taboo that women, they don't talk about testosterone in women, and we always talk about progesterone, but there's a third hormone that we have to talk about, which is testosterone, and our ovaries make those in small quantities. And just even a slight disruption in that can be very, very problematic. Maintaining muscle mass is so important as you age. And that truly is a currency as you go into these next stages of health, as maintaining. And you have to have that energy, drive, libido, focus, the way your brain functions, inflammation, like so important. And there's so many myths involved with like testosterone or even hormone replacement therapy that may or may not be true. And unfortunately, there's the Women's Health Initiative back in it was like 2010 that they even tried to rebuke some of it, but the damage was done in those stages, saying like, oh, it's going to cause breast cancer. These were synthetic hormones, it's going to cause, and with progesterone, these were going to cause blood clots. You're going to get cancer. And then it was done. Like everybody's like, nope. And so,
Yes.
and they actually tried to rescind a lot of that research. And it never took, it was like the first time. And then it was like, sorry, this is the way it is. And so a lot of your doctors don't want to prescribe. They think it's more risk than benefit.
Right.
And
Right.
I agree in
No,
general.
that was our mom. My mom was 61 the first time she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She'd had a hysterectomy, a full, right, in her mid 40s, and then 61. And we would laugh because we'd be like, Mom, double up on those estrogen patches. And they said, at first it was like, oh, it's caused from the estrogen. Now,
Mm-hmm.
keep in mind, this was nearly 20 years ago, 18 years ago. So, I mean, just look at just in that short time. And I even remember like I would never go on estrogen ever, 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 because I have a history of breast cancer. And that's even switched. So, and that's what led me to you is zero. Well, I had three, whatever, however testosterone is measured, I had three. When 50 is normal.
Yourself. 0.
Oh, zero. I'm giving myself too much credit. I have three, but zero. And I assume when women come into you, your wait list, I know is bananas. And that's so good because I know I waited a long time. How long is it?
It's 2 months right now. Yeah.
Okay, friends. There's only one of her and she's really worth the wait. And I tell everybody that books, I'm like,
Once you're in, it's okay.
yes. What's the first thing that you look at? What is something that's, what does a typical visit look like? Who should come see you? I know I've sent you friends that have beat cancer twice and now they're insulin dependent diabetics from their cancer meds and they're my age. And I've had friends that are, messed up cycles, a lot of friends are in the boat of like, I've done the same thing all my life and now I'm gaining weight.
Yeah, it's anybody, honestly. And where I wish I could see people is before they get sick. So like, to have a baseline. So I love them. I have some patients and I really do that come in for just an annual, let's just do a screening. Let's do a touch base. Let's check your body composition, make sure your muscle mass is maintained, make sure your fat mass is at the good place. You're not overly gaining or losing. Let's make sure that because when I do a comprehensive laboratory panel, I mean, I do way more than what your primary care is going to do because I find these as very important and like necessary checks, especially like I said, vitamin D is a hormone. You need that, but your primary oftentimes won't because sometimes your insurance doesn't cover it and doesn't think it's necessary. But, even low vitamin D levels can lead to things like breast cancer, colorectal cancer, hypertension, insulin dependence, so I find those very important. So we do blood work, we do fasting labs, which check cholesterol levels. Let's check your liver and kidney. Let's check your glycemic index. Let's check like what your fasting levels are at, because we could probably catch some things before they become a big deal. Because like it's all about preventing that thing from happening or causing harm or problem to your vital organs. And even just vitamin levels are so important. And checking a full thyroid panel. Some people, I go through and check all the steps. It's just nice to know where we're at. And then if I have a baseline where you feel good, if something doesn't feel great or we're going through a stage of hormone changes, then I'm going to be like, oh, that was really different at this time when you felt, good. And we want, well, I'm always asking, this, how are you feeling? And you're going to do a little questionnaire. All the things.
And so ideally, like our girls' ages, right? 22, 25. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Feeling good. You're in your prime. This is the way you want to feel for the rest of your life. Let's check a panel because I know where you feel good. Remember how I said, I'm like, gosh, I wish I knew what your testosterone level was before.
I know it was 0, Carrie, because I had it tested back when I was 35. So sadly, it's 0. But I mean, that explains, right, the insulin resistance that I had because it's vitamin D levels. And I'm thinking about both Amy and I's daughters, just like, okay, Sophie's asked me to come see you. And I'm like, oh, like in my head, I'm like, I don't think she sees people like you. I think it's just people like me. But hello, I'll be scheduling her appointment with a year wait time, which is great.
Yeah. It really is really cool because if I see that, and remember you share genetics with your daughter. So it's kind of nice to see, okay, oh, I see your vitamin D level might be a little low. Let's make sure we really focus on this. And how are ways to incorporate that in your diet, into your supplements, things like that, exposure to sun and, the Lux lights, even if you're not in direct sun exposure, because we're not in Nebraska. We all tend to be a little low, but deficiency is really a silent thing that could really cause you harm without knowing it. And so, yeah, it's just nice to see. But some people might not have, and you guys know this really well, but like good gut health is important for processing vitamins. And some people don't have that. And maybe their vitamin levels are low without them knowing that, but that's going to cause them more harm later than good. So let's find it now and let's fix it and maybe do some interventions that can prevent these things from happening in the future.
I love that we are talking about this now. I have to say that because I do think it was a little taboo. And I think particularly women our age, my age, we're older than you. So I'm 52, but I think about 3 or 4 years ago, after my children left, like when I pushed through it, I pushed through it, I pushed through it, I take care of my kids, I put everything in my kids. I'm like, you just are feeling that way. And you're like, well, it's because I have kids. Like you almost are numb. And then when they leave, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I guess the only person I can take care of now is my husband if I have one, which I do, but a husband, a dog, and yourself. And oh
Uh-huh.
my gosh, I have to
And
take
your dog wears a diaper, so she does require extra care.
eliminate that one. But like then I'm like, holy cow, I get to take care of myself now. Unlike I was a little different than Molly, that I was like, I was gaining weight. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like emotional, I had set some boundaries. I really made some choices when I was 50, and I'd heard about this. And I went in before I went into Carrie, I had done some exploring with somebody else because I didn't want Molly to know, because I didn't want her to judge me. I mean, that's the reality. I didn't want her to judge me, but I'm like, I talked to, a therapist that I was going to, and she was like, I think you need to try this. And again, like shame. And then I walk into Carrie's waiting room and I know everybody in the waiting room. All my friends are there and my sister, for shit's sake.
And that's the worst thing ever, to like think that someone's going to feel shame for something that they're trying to treat. It's these diagnoses, that are really significant, and the weight gain is so impactful on your health if you're doing everything right already. And if you're doing that good exercise, that good diet, and that means that something inflammation is happening and we're having some potential insulin resistance. And it's okay to talk about things that we might use off label for hormonal symptoms. Besides just hormones, we can use peptide therapy, which is a precursor to a hormone, just to help your body work better. Specifically, something that may need you when you eat, you need that insulin to take that food and that sugar that we make into the cells for energy. And you might be tired because you're not getting it there. And you might need something like GLP-1 receptor agonist to help that. And the nice thing is, it just helps your body work the way it used to. It's not physically changing you or making you dependent. It's just helping your body work like it used to, so that you would lose the weight that you gain, because that's your normal, if that makes sense. So, and then if you're being appropriately monitored, we're making sure that you maintain your muscle mass, make sure that you're getting in your proper nutrition, and they can be a game changer for women during these like perimenopausal and menopausal stages. And we don't talk about that. It's like sometimes we need peptides in our lives. Sometimes we need some hormones in our lives. Sometimes we need some vitamin D in our lives. And sometimes we just need nutrition, and some people need it all.
Yeah.
So we always talk about where I can meet these patients wherever is best for them in general.
I think there's a lot of people out there that's like, that's cheating. And I'm like, you know what? Here's the thing. You're doing all the right things, right? I mean, for God's sake. I mean, I've raced for 20 years and it's like, I have no vitamin D because I have no testosterone. And so therefore I'm insulin resistant. Like I needed some help of peptides to get me back to being not, how bad would that have been had I gone? And that's what I wondered. I told my husband, like, I wonder how long I went undiagnosed with insulin resistance.
Because remember, your hemoglobin A1C was pretty elevated. And that's where I'm like, this is not normal, for someone that works out and eats right and has done all the healthy lifestyles. And that's when it's not cheating, it's actually helping your body work better. And I'm like, this is just the menopause, it's quite, but we can help reset that. This isn't something, that sentence. It's just helping your body work better. Also, if your insulin levels are not receptive, and your cells are going to die faster. If you aren't having those proper hormones working right, you're going to have earlier cellular apoptosis. You're just aging yourself, So if you think about it in a longevity standpoint, you're helping your body work better so that you can live a long and full life. And, these golden ages that we go into, we're not going to feel like, I don't want to get out of the couch. I'm just going to watch TV all day, put the heater on at 80. I'm like, I don't want that for me. I want to be active.
We're just getting started.
Yeah. I'm like, my kids are going to be gone and I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy my time that I built, this, the ability to be able to enjoy my time. I want to be able to, I just see too much that people give up at that point.
And that is so true. And I think some big things that we're hearing about, well, number one, something I always hear is light, really healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you still need your vitamin levels checked, because that was me. And
Yeah.
clearly deficient on my B12 was through the roof. Great. But my D was like absent. And you're like, Molly, you live at a lake, you're even outside all the time. But because of the testosterone, as we know,
Mhm.
that messed with my D. But I want you to just spend some time talking about muscle mass
Okay.
with peptides.
Oh,
So the way
okay.
you monitor it, and then I want you to talk, if you can, speak to the DEXA scan, because I know a lot of people out there are super educated about that. And
Yeah. And
how
so,
you monitor
yeah,
it.
the most important thing, as I said, is maintaining muscle mass as you age. And if you're doing any GLP-1 receptor agonists, if you're not getting proper nutrition in to meet your metabolic demands and getting the appropriate amounts of protein, which I'm always like, you got to kind of find at least 90 to 120, depending on how much you're doing per day of grams of protein, good protein. And I always think that animal protein sources are best. And, if you can't tolerate that, we work on getting in more of the plant-based proteins. And the reason that people lose muscle mass is because sometimes they can make you feel not hungry, and then you can maybe forget to eat, or you can't eat as much as you used to. You just have to maybe work through it, and you have to do those small frequent meals and get in the protein. And in my practice, not a lot of people lose muscle because we are very diligent about that. But it's easy to see, like, how if you weren't keeping up with that, how easy it would be to just, oh, I forgot to eat today, but and then I ran, so many miles, and then and then
Yeah.
your body's just taking energy from the muscle, and that's why you're losing muscle mass. And for your bone health as well, DEXA. So for your bone health, it's so important you have to have those resistance exercises after you get to menopause. So vitamin D is a critical component of maintaining muscle. We don't put more bone on our bone, we actually just maintain what we have. And so you got to have those proper vitamin D levels, or you're going to be at higher risk for osteopenia and osteoporosis. And so, the magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K are all important components of building and maintaining muscle mass as well. And so DEXA scans are where we kind of request or want you to get those around the age of menopause, so we can kind of see where's your bone density at this point. And then from there is where we would screen further, dependent on if you have penia, which just means a little bit of where it's not as normal as what we would like, or do you have porosis, which means that you don't have the amount of bone mass on that we want. And so when that happens is, like I said, like usually about the menopausal stages where we want to see that. And then the screening tends to be dependent on like what you show. But if you're doing good, like body, because a lot of people have access to body composition scanning, I think right now, depending on like who you see. The nice thing is that does take in a little bit of that muscle mass for me. Like if I see a big drop, I'm like, oh, we might need to be doing some other scanning in general. And so it does help me, like from my standpoint, just to make sure that I'm like keying in on like, are we getting any like of the loss of our bone density besides muscle as well. But the DEXA is definitely the gold standard in general. And that should be something that I think DEXA, even you can go in and get your screening done even without, there's a lot of these you can get it without even a prescription. You just have them send it to whatever physician or primary care that you want them to send them to. So usually like mammograms, any kind of screening test, you can do those type of things. And so if you want,
Recommend a DEXA scan once a year, wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah, well, it depends on if you have any type of penia. So I would say you may or may not need it every year, just depending on what is showing. But certainly hitting 50, let's get one in. Let's see where it's at. And then same thing, kind of like we talk about screening, like mammograms, those are important. Like as you hit 50, we want to kind of make sure that we're doing those every year, because that tends to be the time that women are more diagnosed about that time too. So the screenings are important. And then also like knowing that there's other screenings out there that can offer less radiation that are just as reliable. So this is kind of off the cuff a little bit, but tears testing. So actually taking a test of your tears, like from your eye, actually is 92% sensitive for breast cancer screening. You can buy them on Amazon, and it's 130 bucks. Yeah, so you don't have to get your boobs.
oh, I never knew this. And you just cry into this little
Yeah,
tube.
just like a little litmus paper, and you put it right under your eye, and then you send it in, and then it'll screen, and it'll say whether or not you need to go towards diagnostics or not. And yes,
Oh.
sensitive. It's a tears test. It's pretty cool. And so
Okay, are you suggesting that, not to put you on not to
yeah.
put you on are you suggesting that over a thermoscan?
Well, and thermoscan is interesting because thermoscan is going to have like head to toe, right? So it's going to tell you everything, like where you might have more cellular uptake of something in one place or another. The tears testing I like for just breast cancer. It's just breast cancer for in general. And so I like that one for patients that they maybe that's uncomfortable, or they have maybe some implants, or like it's hard to, and they feel like it's not, or if they're really fibrous breasts and we're not getting good pictures in general. And I'm like, oh gosh, you're going through all this radiation for nothing. Cause then it says we got to go do more things because we can't see it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, silly. So working smarter, not harder on some.
Yeah.
So
I think we've had more friends kind of tend to like do more of the thermal scanning than
yeah.
the
Mhm.
traditional like mammogram.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and if any of my patients would prefer to do that, is completely fine, up to them. And I just like to see what their scans show so I can look at them as well. And just keep, if you do thermal scan, I definitely think you should do that every year, and just to make sure you're monitoring. But yeah, I don't love some of our technology. And I feel like with females, we're never given like the benefit of the doubt of the newest like technologies. Like, here, guys need to squish their testicles into a little like every year, no. It's like the PSA tests are so sensitive now anyways too, like with the PSA, like rectum screening, is really kind of moot. You can get testing done in your serum a lot of times now. So so it's not
Right.
fair. And
It
that's
isn't.
it's like if we wanted to do like something like that, then it's probably not going to be paid for by insurance, unfortunately. So we all got to get lobbying.
Yes, we do. I mean, come on, women. And I think another thing I'm lobbying for too is creatine. And I remember a year ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, that's because 10 years ago, it was just like taboo. You don't use it. And now it's probably the biggest supplement besides D3K2 that
Mhm.
I hear in menopausal women. And I've been using it for over a year
Mhm.
consistently.
Mhm.
Um, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on creatine?
So I have a couple. So I do love muscle building. I think it's super important. So that's why I screen those complete metabolic panels, because creatine is a big molecule for muscle building. And I will tell you that some people who start to get a little bit of that kidney function decline after age 60, sometimes creatine can cause them some acute kidney injuries, or even risk of like some stones formation if they're not drinking enough water. So, for someone like you, your screens have always been perfect. Everything looks great. I'm like, yes, go to town. But some of my patients don't do as well. So
So
I'm
as
like,
long as you're drinking the water.
yeah, I'm like, okay, drink the water. But then I say, well, instead of just creatine, like maybe just do some essential amino acids if you need smaller molecules for building blocks. But the creatine, yes, so important, because you need to, and remember, this is from animal, so that's how to build muscle. But if someone has any of those screenings on my metabolic panel, I'm just like, well, maybe just do essential amino acids that will build up to that, because then it won't put so much stress on the kidneys in general. But yeah, absolutely. You need your, and if someone's losing muscle, we've got to get something else on board, because I'm like, you got to.
Good to know that, like the kidney side effect, like good to know about that and to be aware, and also your water. And then also essential amino acids. I know I've always been aware of branch chain, but I know essential amino is underneath the umbrella of branch chain. So that's important in muscle building. Can you use both?
Yes, for sure.
Because I
Absolutely.
do, thank God. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And your functions have been great. So you're good.
Perfect. Perfect. I like,
You
because I'm
do your
using both.
Yeah, you do your screening. So that's important. That's another reason why I like, at least once a year, get your whole panel checked, so that we make sure that we're not slowing the kidney function down, make sure we're not causing any more, because creatinine is that byproduct of muscle buildup and breakdown, creatine, you hear that. And then so that metabolic waste, I want to see that at a good level where it's not causing, like, you think about a coffee filter, not letting it get mucked up, that kidney, from filtrating. And so, yeah. And some people, they don't process some things. Maybe it could be genetics, or it could be something else, but as well. So then I'm like, okay, let's find something different. But otherwise, yes, absolutely, because you need to build your muscle, and it's so important to maintain muscle mass.
And I'm going to ask you straight about pellets versus injections versus
Yeah.
sublingual for testosterone. And because
Mhm.
I was amazed, I was telling a woman I do pellets in the UK, and she's like, we can't get them over here. Like,
Yeah.
we can't get
Wow.
testosterone in the UK.
Really?
And so a lot of her friends fly to Florida to stock up and bring it home. And so,
Oh, I love
Hopefully not in their booty.
yeah. So I'm like, I'm like, there we go. This is a need that you could fill, Carrie. So,
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, is there a rhyme or a reason or why you do pellets? I know I personally do pellets.
Mhm.
I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends that have
I
done,
do
some
under the
people do
tongue.
Yep. You
Yeah.
do under the tongue.
Yeah,
What?
how different everybody is. And so it just modalities of getting that actual hormone to the bloodstream so it can be active. And they all have different peaks and valleys, right? So least effective to most effective, but that might be best for one person versus another. And it's usually creams. Don't love creams, especially for active people, because they'll sweat off. Or you could transfer that hormone to another person in your family or animal, things like that. So creams are not my favorite, but they work really well for, say, like I have, like say I have an 82-year-old that wants to still be on her hormone, but I can give her a very gentle part of it that gives her little to no risk, if that makes sense, because she can use very minimal for what she needs for her symptom. Or then, so that would be creams. And then the next one, sublingual. So under the tongue, they're called troches. It's a fun word. And that will just get the active form of what the hormone is into the bloodstream right away. And then whatever you're swallowing is just kind of filler in general. So that's easy because you can do it every day. But remember, there's a peak and a valley. So like, it's 24 hours that those last, so that you have those like peaks and valleys of the bloodstream of active hormone. And then we can do injections for females, but I tend to think that females get a little bit more of the male side effect, especially with testosterone. With injections, they'll acne,
Beard
and hair, the beard, oily. And so is it great? But it works for some people, and that's fine. And then, because, I do it like every couple weeks. Usually it's like, well, every 2 weeks I do shots for girls. So it's kind of like this, and then it declines. So, with the side effect sounds. And then pellets are cool because you can set it and forget it. Like I put them in there. Yeah, they are just compressed testosterone and they live in the fatty part of the butt, and then they just dissolve over like 3 to 4 months. So there's a steady like basal dose of that testosterone in the bloodstream all the time. And then when you're more cardiovascular output or working out, you're going to use more, just like you would normal hormones, and then less when you're sleeping, and there's not as much circulation around the pellets. So pretty cool that it mimics like ovarian function. So people who have a lot of problems with those highs and lows and they're feeling, I'm like, sometimes like just try pellets because it could help stabilize. Or if like that FSH was really high, so that's like the higher follicle stimulating hormone is, that the more menopause or angry your ovary, your brain, your pituitary is telling your ovaries to work, and it's so mad at it, it's yelling. So I want to try a little bit more systemic version. Just calm down a little. So it depends on the patient too. And there's downtime with pellets, which some of my patients don't love, because I'm like, they gotta settle. And they could stay in there or they could bleed.
Not to point fingers.
As you point fingers, I know people are like, now, are you sure you can work out? And I'm like, well, Carrie is very specific with me. Yes, I can.
Because I glue and I plaster and
and I just try to just do Pilates and walking the next day.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And I put ice packs on.
Yes. I am like, those things are in there. They are in there. And I also think it's interesting that I know our normal OBGYN, and a lot of them are like, yeah, honey, if that makes you feel better. I mean, they're just not educated, I always say, and that's okay. And you have to take your own health into your hands. Is it covered by insurance? No. That's the other big thing. But I mean, literally, I talk to women every day my age that are like so miserable and they just think it's normal. Heart palpitations. I know I've even had a few times where I'm like, Carrie, I have a heartbeat in my belly, like in my abdomen. And so I know Oprah, just to bring some attention, she said she had heart palpitations for 2 years and totally went undiagnosed. So
they'll do a full cardiac workup on you and it's going to be negative. Like,
and
be declining.
Frozen shoulder, I think even as a physical therapist, oh my gosh, how many women did I miss that were menopausal that were like, well, frozen shoulder came about because you either were a smoker or you were diabetic, and so I remember like almost judging patients like they're a liar, they're totally smoking because, if they're not diabetic, then how did their shoulder get frozen? Well, they were in menopause. Like,
Yeah. And like the hip is another one. You'll see like the hip pain is another one of those. But, like testosterone treats those joint pains pretty well. It helps the inflammation. It's pretty cool. Like a lot of patients just love that their joint pain feels better when they have a little bit. And these are physiologic doses. I'm giving appropriate doses for female function. And how, we monitor. Let's see how you feel. Like, are you feeling better? Are you processing this well? I'll tell you what, testing is testing, but it's for men, so it's like we have to kind of extrapolate a little bit because nothing's for females. And there's so many articles and so much research done on how important testosterone is to a female, and nobody recognizes it, and it's kind of sad, so we got to talk about it more. So we can.
Right. And also just the research. I know just following some menopause docs that are like, women have not been studied. Like they finally started studying women. Like, I know this is not like 20 minutes ago, but I
Yeah.
mean, men have always been the study of all these things. And again, you don't have to, I remember just saying mindset wise, like when people are like, oh, you gain weight in menopause. I'm like, well, I'm not signing up for that class. Like I'm
Yeah.
not. And I
Like,
didn't. That was not my symptom why I went in, but just more like, I'm just curious, am I through? And I just think, gosh, if my curiosity wouldn't have brought me in, again, what would that have done to my system to be insulin resistant? Like,
yeah, it was the silent thing you didn't know, and nobody affected that, because of your lifestyle, right? So in traditional primary care, we don't check what's called a hemoglobin A1C unless your blood glucose level is above 100 at your fasting. But I love the hemoglobin A1C because it gives me like a 3-month window of what your blood sugars have been. Like you might be normal right now, but what has it been over the last 3 months? And then that pops and I was like, dude, your blood sugars have been like 120, or that's not normal or good for your body. That's creating more inflammation, more risk, more of that cardiovascular disease potential for collecting plaque, and hypertension. And that's certainly not the way that we want you to be when you're so healthy already in your lifestyle. So, and the other thing, like with testosterone's always there in our body. So remember estrogen and progesterone, they kind of wax and wane depending on your cycle. So they're kind of dependent on where you're at, but testosterone was always there. And so when it's gone, you're like, oh, what's wrong? So a lot of times optimizing all your hormones together can really help you feel the best you can be.
Oh, wow. And again, we mentioned 50. Is there an age though that I remember looking back, and I think most of it, again, as my children left the house and I had a moment to breathe and think, huh, like think about myself maybe. And that was my mid 40s.
Yeah.
So I kind of think like
Early
mid
40s.
40s,
Yep.
early 40s,
Yep.
that these women should be, if you feel like, they have to come see you, truly.
right.
That's when the big changes happen, because remember 51 for most people is the average age of menopause, but the decline happens 7 to 14 years before that. So early menopause would be before age 35, but also patients that have thyroid issues tend to have an earlier stage of menopausal decline. So because remember, that's all part of your endocrine system. So it's important to, if you just don't feel well, let's check in.
Right. Different races I've heard, even with menopause, perimenopause. And I wish we could come up with a different word for decline. Like it just seems like, well, wow, like yay.
Yeah.
Like I know, I always told Carrie, I go, I think
Definitely.
menopause, the only reason I won't say it because I feel like everyone's like, does she have a dry vagina? Let's just be honest. Like, I mean, I feel like that's all people think when they think of menopause, or maybe that's just me, but
Just you.
Carrie's like, we need to change that. We're going to change it, Molly. And I'm like, yes, we're going to educate people that, and menopause also doesn't mean you're old. I guess I just always thought, well,
No.
that's for grandmas. And I'm certainly not a grandma. I mean, I'm old enough I could be, but I'm just like, it just sounds like declining, dry.
Sounds negative.
I
Yeah.
mean,
This
that's
is
all.
this is
Yeah.
a normal stage of life, but we can also help our bodies function and go through this as well as we can. And as you know, like there's so many things in our environment that cause decline a little bit more than, like just nanoparticles of plastic, like hormone disruptors. We live in Nebraska. We're around a lot of agriculture, and we're not being challenged or physically challenged like we should be as humans. We're indoors and, indoors.
Indoors under fluorescent lights.
Yeah, we should be outside. And, so we really have to kind of combat that. Our environment can also change how our hormones are metabolized as well. So, metabolized or how it's, changes happen. So we just, all the things come into place. It's not just your own body doing it, but it's also could be environmental. So, just being proactive about, your health in general.
Yes, we could be here for another hour if we talked about all the plastics and the nanoplastic. Like, I love that you are just so aware. It's not just one thought, but to me, you encompass the whole thing. So we always, Amy, did you have other questions for Carrie? I mean,
No, I just want everybody to know that if you, Molly and I are like laying it all out there. Like I said, we were joking earlier, but Carrie has helped us so much. I knew there was something wrong. I went without consulting Molly because she's the medical, and then I see her in the waiting room. So there we go.
But I told you, to be fair, I said, you've got to go see Carrie. I mean,
Yeah.
at least I told
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And I mean, we didn't even talk about NAD and, all the other like
Yes.
injections and things like that you could do. I mean, we'd be here till tomorrow.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think those are incredible supplements too that,
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I get them. I mean, I'm like, I'm on board. I mean, whatever's going to help me feel well and live well and be well and sleep well.
Exactly. Is
And
important. And both the, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you guys. Like, thank you for the kind words too. It's just, and all it is a conversation, honestly. It's just like, and then we can find out where can I help or what can we do to make people feel better. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be an injection. It could be many things, just like even just talking about maybe you just need some filtered water in your house, it could be as simple as like changing your diet, so it doesn't have to even go towards that, but it can be all or nothing too. So everybody's different, and everybody has different like thoughts on what they want to do for their health. But if I could leave with anything saying like testosterone is not a myth in women. Okay. So remember that it is important for your body. And we should use a different word of decline, just changes, right?
changes,
changes. Changes. We're going to make those positive changes. And so talking about it is the most important thing. So thank you so much for making a platform for females. It's not talked about enough. That's why we don't hear about it and we don't discuss it. And then there might be some things out there that was taboo, or maybe we have not the right facts on. And so that's what it's good to have that conversation. And it happens way before 51. It's happening usually early 40s for a lot of women, and 45 is definitely where I see a lot of people in some kind of stage. It could be a hot flash, it could be irritability changes, it could be that severe PMS, it could be dysmenorrhea, which is like where your periods are off and you're like, what is happening? And this didn't used to be like this before, so many things in general.
Yeah.
Well, you can never retire because we're both sending our girls to get just their preliminary panels. So, I mean, you're going to be with them for a long time.
I'm not going anywhere. I love my job.
Yeah. This is why Molly and I are so passionate about this. As everybody knows, we have found it as we have really have found exactly where we know God has put it, what God has put us on this earth to do. And it is our coaching with mindset, right? And that we have the power within us. And every single one of us does to make decisions. And again, we've merged into our husbands and our families and life. And so this just goes along with, again, the whole package, right? Mentally, physically, of taking back the power that you gave away, setting some boundaries, taking care of yourself. And so this is like the next, we will continue to do this until Molly and I take our last breath along with Carrie, because we're so passionate about this for women. And so as we wrap this up, we always ask, the name of our podcast is called Meet Me in the Penthouse. And so I want to ask you, what does penthouse living mean to you?
Oh my gosh, you know what that reminds me of? Zsa Zsa Gabor. Do you remember the Gabor twins? Is like, hello. What was the name of the Green Acres?
Yes.
That makes me think penthouse living, forgive me, Park Avenue.
You're thinking of Zsa Zsa.
With her like her fur on and her jewels, and then start out at the farm.
That is too funny. I love that.
Like it could be a good metaphor. No. Yeah. So, gosh, you could do so much with penthouse. That could be your state of mind at the most elevated, right? It could be, even just a physical as a house. It could be, many things, but penthouse always to me means the top. So let's be the top of our health and wellness, right? And take control.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and just knowing that you guys are so empowering, I feel like that's such a cool name for your podcast. So nice. Nicely done.
Thank you. Well, we love you. And how do people find you?
Oh, they can go to emmywellnessaesthetics.com, or they can look up Emmy Wellness Care and Aesthetics, Carrie Wales, nurse practitioner, and just, come give me a email, call, come get some labs done. We'll hang out, those type of things. So we're over on Pine Lake. So, and we have
Very
urgent
good.
care, we have primary care. We get all the things.
Go see Carrie, Carrie, and then Wales. It's in our show notes, but just in case you missed it. And for everyone listening, again, go to our website, www.sistersnextdoor.com, and get signed up for our wait list, because it is full for our next round of group coaching. We do have a mastermind that is starting this summer. We're going to do some stuff in person. We hear you women that you want more community. So we have that piece as well. If you're interested, again, reach out to us at hello@sistersnextdoor.com. And we're just excited to keep serving and serving big. And so thank you so much, Carrie. We love you.
Thank
you. We'll see you at the top.
You guys are the best. Appreciate you so much.
Hey guys, we'd love to have you join our wait list for our class of You from the Top. There are going to be incredible women who are making incredible, decisive, clear decisions. The energy is fabulous. The view from the top is fabulous, and there's room for you at the top. Go to sistersnextdoor.com and join our wait list.